Hey there, welcome to the show, Les Sulgrove. Week 46, Central Iowa's Real Estate Market Update. This is hopefully a live edition. I started the show and it didn't appear to show up, so I just decided to try it again, and it looks like it's now working. So good job. Thanks for joining me. We are going to try something I haven't done for over 2 years. I haven't done a live show in a couple of years, and so I hope that you will enjoy tonight's program, and we'll probably go back to the regular format here next week because this is a little bit stressful here. So, all right, let's get into the show here. This is coming to you live with a report from Houston, Texas, and here is the dashboard for the week. One cool thing, actually, there's just two cool things that have happened this past week. Number one, we hit 4,515 listings on the market. We broke that 4,500 mark. That's just fantastic news. And also over here on the right, we've surpassed 12,000 closed sales. So that's also a good sign there. And I'm hoping that we aren't done for the year yet. We've got about 45 days to hit another 1,000 closed sales, and we've been doing that at the pace of about I'd say usually right around 25 to 30 days right now. So that's a good sign. I think we'll be okay on that. If you have any questions, I'm going to have you just leave them in the chat. I'm going to pop off of this so I can kind of see. We're only on Facebook tonight. We're not on YouTube. What I'm doing tonight is recording this show, and it will be posted onto YouTube here. So, all right, well, let's just get into the actual meat of the show here, and that is Dr. Yoon and Dr. Lautz from NAR. Dr. Lawrence Yoon, my good buddy, Chief Economist for National Association of Realtors, and Dr. Jessica Lautz, who is Senior VP of Marketing and Statistics and everything nerdy, which is, I've known Jessica about as long as Dr. Yoon. And we're going to take a look at both of their presentations. We'll start off here with Dr. Yoon's. This is his real estate economic update. I will post in the YouTube video, and then later on this YouTube channel or on this Facebook page, I will post the full PDF reports. There are actually 2 reports out here, and I'll post both of those. And let's start off here with Dr. Yoon's. First, one of his slides, I didn't bring every single slide in, so because it just would be just way too long of a show here. But let me get rid of that here so we can see the whole slide. There we go. The first thing that Dr. Yoon talked about was kind of the state of the market. Are we number of home sales? Now, it feels like we're doing pretty good this year, but when you look at this across the last 2 or 3 years, we have seasonality. This is where those little peaks and valleys, and right here is where COVID kind of hit. Again, there's that little bump that we always tend to see there. But really this last 3 years, or 2.5 years, or almost 3 years here, we're seeing a different, a pretty steady number of homes closed. It's down just a little bit from last year. So we've the excitement we felt in the early part of the year, and then right after the holiday, or right after the middle of the year, you can see that right over here on the right side, this little bit of a downturn didn't jog up and down. It actually stayed up here for a period of time, and now it's just finally starting to drop down a little bit. So, I think that's making it feel like maybe the market isn't as slow as it could be, although I know some of you would argue with me and say it's very, very slow. But Dr. Yoon's prediction, we'll see here in a minute, about 2026, maybe we'll have some hope for you there. So the next slide I'm going to pull out of his deck here is consumer sentiment, also known as, the confidence scores here. What you see is going all the way back to the year 2000, the higher this graphic is, the higher the confidence or consumer sentiment is. And, you look at a few events, 2008, 2009, when we had the mortgage meltdown period there in that 2000, 2008, 2009 area. You can see where mortgage or consumer sentiment dropped off quite a bit, and then it was slowly graduated back up until right at COVID, and of course this drops down pretty dramatically. During COVID, we had a little bit of a brief reprieve. That's when the interest rates were tremendously low, and you can just almost tell the minute that rates went from 3% up to 4 and 5 and 6%, and almost actually it went up to 8% at one point. But here's the consumer sentiment or the consumer confidence from that point. So with that said, from 2023 through 2025, we've actually seen a couple of years of increase in that consumer sentiment or that confidence, and here just this past 2 years we've seen it come back down again. So again, I think we'll see at the end of the show, or at least at the end of Dr. Yoon's slides, you'll see maybe a bright shining star to hang on to there. He went into some pretty good detail about consumer sentiment, and basically his message was, when consumers are asked, are they positive or are they optimistic about the future, they're typically more optimistic than they are about the present. And if you go all the way back to 2020, that stands out here. The green lines are the future sentiments, and the red line down here is the present. This is the one we saw just a second ago. And after COVID hit, these two sentiments, both future and present, have been almost lockstep. Basically saying, a lot of the consumers are not exactly excited about the future of home buying and selling, perhaps. It's again, I think we're going to see this turn around here in 2026, but there's certainly been a marked difference pre-COVID to post-COVID here. Days on market, of course, this past year we've seen that change dramatically as well. During the COVID years, our days on market were very, very low nationally. Now, even here in the Des Moines market and the central Iowa market, we were down around that, less than 10 days for sure. And nationally, they were down around 16 to 18 days on market was kind of that lowest point right here in 2022. But nationally, we're seeing this same trend, and then we've seen this here in Des Moines as well. This was the year where days on market really jumped up, and that's what we're seeing right here nationally. Fortunately, we're not seeing near 50 days on market, but this is a pretty good number here, seeing this go up like this, and hopefully this will also come down as consumer sentiment and confidence comes back. One of the things that Dr. Yoon spent quite a bit of time talking about was the practice of price reductions. Well, we all know that price reductions here have been quite frequent here as far as, at least in our Des Moines market here. He actually broke it down by days on market, and I do the same kind of thing around the end of the year. This is, he had this figured out for September, and then the October numbers came out, and he went ahead and scratched those and put in the October numbers. And what you see is that really 0 to 14 days, most homes are selling right around, around 95% of list price, or just a little over 95% of list price. Once you start to take reductions, those numbers go up, and obviously the story here is, the longer your home is on the market, the more the price reduction from list price to contract or list price to closing. He's got these broken down by two different categories, which is an interesting way to look at this. I may have to incorporate that into 2026. Price reductions from list price to contract, which basically would be what's the price at the home went under contract, and then ultimately how much more did it go down or up, probably down, when it went on to closing. So that might be a number that would be interesting to look at, because if you look here, 91 to 120 days, it was about 8%, and then this really tells you where the negotiations really happened was during that offer process. So This means that homes were already reduced by about 8%, and then they ended up closing another 2% lower. So I'll look really hard at if I can do that in my reports for next year. The one of the graphics that really stood out to me, which I thought was kind of an interesting one, is the description of the federal deficit. Now we look at this, and of course, I have never seen this graphic shown in such a dramatic way. We all know that the deficit is the difference between how much the government is spending versus how much they're bringing in. But I really was impressed with this back here. This is back in the mortgage meltdown period, that 2008, 2009, where the deficit grew not so much because of spending, but more because of a lack of income coming in, money coming in through that foreclosure period. And then you get up here around 2020 where COVID hit, and right there's COVID again, that little hook down. All the stimuluses that were issued, all the money that was spent on COVID, all the changes, this is where our spending really started to go out of control. But it came back in control around 2023, 2022. But yet it's, I say back in control, it came down from this extreme high here of almost over $7 trillion in spending. But it is still right here, this deficit is, if I remember right, 5, 6, it's just right at about 2.5, what is the federal deficit? I should have looked that up. I want to say it's around $2.3 trillion. So it's a crazy number anyway. All you have to do is drive down Fleur Drive and you'll see that billboard. Not a laughing matter, but anyway, consumer price inflation here. Obviously, the Federal Reserve is trying to keep inflation in check, and that red bar going across there, that red arrow, that is the target rate of 2%. And we were coming down, in 2024. Of course, we had a couple of rate cuts, several rate cuts in 23, and 22 and 23. But we were trying to really get that inflation number down around that 2%, and one of the ways they tried to do that was with Federal Reserve rate cuts, and they tended to work. We were, the inflation rate was going down here a little bit and started to rise, and I think that's a lot of the reason why the Fed has made 2 cuts so far this year. So it's currently right around that 3%, and we need to get it down to 2%. The government does. So if you hear them talk about that, that's what that looks like. Dr. Yoon went on to speak quite a bit about jobs and job gains from pre-COVID to post-COVID. So this is the percentage change from March of 2020, when COVID really took hold, to August of this year. And the light blue states are the ones that had very, very, well, not very low, but lower percentage jobs increases. Iowa right there in the middle is just under 1% increases from March of 2020 to August of 2025. The darker numbers here are around that 5 to I think it's 5 to about 8% or 8 or 9%. Places like Nevada, the sand states per se, Arizona, Oklahoma, all those, and then the green states are the ones that had the double digits. So Texas, Florida, the Carolinas, and Idaho and Utah, are basically the leaders in that era. But there's only one state that seems to have had, jobs have actually gone down, are still not back up above pre-COVID area, and that's the state of Hawaii. And also, I guess there's 2, is Washington, D.C. They are down 5.4%, and Hawaii is down just almost 1%. So, understandably, D.C. is the where the most federal workers have been. A lot of people were basically, laid off, and just employment was just tough in that in the DC district, and then Hawaii at just under 1%. So we're trying to do better than that in Iowa. Here we're almost 1%. Unemployment rate across the nation currently is at 4.3% as of August. One of the things about NAR stats are they're typically a month or two behind what we are when I'm trying to report, which is trying to give you the most recent data. They rely on a lot of national reporting and government reporting, which basically takes them out longer. But this was an interesting graphic here. This is the unemployment rate when COVID hit, which obviously skyrocketed to that 15% that we all were hearing about. But within the period of about a year and a half, we were actually back to pretty good unemployment rates being down around that 4 to 4.25%. And these are people that are still looking for jobs. There's certainly some argument out there about people who are unemployed but are not looking for a job. Those folks do not technically show up on this unemployment rate there. He went into a little bit of price trends, and we'll go through a couple more slides, and then we'll get into the Dr. Lautz's presentation as well. The 5-year home price gain since pre-COVID. This is looking from Q1 of 2020, which would have been that January through March, to Q2 of 2025. What is the price gains across the nation? And again, that same kind of a scale. Iowa sitting here with our home gain percentages. If you owned a home for $100,000, just for example, here in 2020, that property value is up by 46.5%, so almost 50%, and that's good increases of equity and value. Many states around the nation are up over 50%, predominantly the southern states and the Rocky Mountain states here, and more the plains, I guess, actually, Nebraska and South Dakota, and Colorado up 50%. But then you get into these green states, Montana out there, I think that was, New Hampshire, Maine's at 80% increase in price gains since prior to COVID. So I think people are just trying to get out and away from everything. You got Montana here at 70.8%. So yeah, interesting numbers for sure. And let's see, it looks like Hawaii wasn't doing too bad. They were doing pretty sad on unemployment, but their values are up about 47%. As far as net worth goes, again, looking back to 2000, overall net worth of real estate, right around that $40 trillion mark there from the Federal Reserve. I just can't wrap my head around those numbers. But if you just kind of look at the trending here from the downturn here again from basically from that mortgage meltdown, and then we got into COVID, and net worth went up because of all these the home value prices going up. One thing that he did mention that was kind of an encouraging remark is that new mortgage applications are up. Doesn't necessarily mean they are pre-approved or that they're out actually buying, but they are up because people are out there getting pre-approved, which is a wonderful thing, because as we begin to build inventory, especially here in Iowa, we'll start to see some of that, those buyers start to make offers that will already be ahead of the game with the pre-approval, hopefully. So this is a good sign as we move into maybe even the slower time of year. So the nationwide forecast, which is the one that I always watch for, is basically 2025 we had existing home sales pretty much flat across the nation. And remember, I said we're about 1,000 sales away with 45 days to go. Even if we were to just hit another 1,000 or 1,500 closed sales before the end of the year, that's technically still pretty flat because we're not seeing any great gains. So we're right there with the national numbers for existing home sales. In 2026, Dr. Yoon is predicting a 14% increase in existing home sales. So he's rather conservative most times, so that's a pretty big number for someone who's conservative, and I think that that's something we can maybe hang some hope on. New home sales this past year have been down about 2%. Again, I've seen the same thing here in the Des Moines market. I don't know if that's quite the percentage, but we have seen new home sales dipping a little bit in our marketplace, and he expects those to be up nationally about 5% next year. As far as the pricing goes, we are seeing, I think we're seeing a little bit more than a 3% median home sale price, but nationally that 3% is that number, with a 4% increase next year. And honestly, if we were to go 3 to 4% in the Des Moines and Central Iowa market, that is very, very respectable and probably very good for our marketplace to not be outpacing many home buyers while also giving some increase in equity and value. Mortgage rates, he danced around this, but then he pretty much put the hammer down. He says, we've seen the average rate this year right around 6.7%. So you take January 1 to date, we were up at above 7 for a short period, and then down right at really close to 6% later. But on average, we're about 6.5%, 6.7%. He's saying that 2026 we will be closer to that average of 6%, meaning that yes, there are times it may dip under 6% into the 5.5s nationally. Now, again, remember, every time I talk about mortgage rates nationally, I know right now, or at least this last couple of weeks, you could get a mortgage interest rate under 6%, but this is the national number, and again, this is the average for the year that he's predicting is 6%. So there will be times when the rate will be higher than 6 and perhaps lower if his predictions come on, but nothing like down to at least. He really didn't expect it to go down as low as even 5%. It might go to 5.5 is kind of what he thought his bottom number was. As far as job gains, we're 400,000 job gains, and next year 1.3 million. We need to be about 2 million in job gains is what that not 2 million indicates there. We really need to see more job gains both years, and we're going to miss the mark pretty heavily this year. And looks like his prediction is we aren't going to hit it next year either. The unemployment rate is going to stay pretty steady there. It's right around that 4.3 to 4.4%. I tend not to get too much into those numbers in the Des Moines market, just because I'm trying to stay in my own lane there. But I think that's a pretty confident number to stay with there. As far as the median net worth between homeowners and renters, it is absolutely growing. You can see that in 2022, the renter's net worth was around $10,400, where a homeowner with home equity, their net worth is around $396,000. That has always been that large disparity. It pays to be a homeowner. I mean, you're building equity. You have something tangible that you own, and regardless of how much you spend every year on your mortgage payment, you're probably basically banking that in your mortgage equity, whereas a home renter is basically out there just paying someone else's mortgage. 2025 estimate for the end of this year is actually the net worth down a little bit from 2022 just because of the rising rent costs. They say that the median net worth of an individual this year that's renting is $10,000 versus $430. So, if you need any more motivation to get out there and talk to renters, this is a fantastic slide to use and to go talk to them about. As far as which age group is enjoying the fruits of these net worth gains, really from 55,000 up, age 55 up. Currently, the boomer class, 65 to 74, is seeing the most net worth gain, and they're the ones that basically are sitting on maybe larger homes that they have not yet downsized from. And with currently really no no motivation. I mean, with prices that have risen over the several years, and the rates that they may have, they maybe feel like they're still in those golden handcuffs. So it's one reason why we see the 65 to 74 of those boomers kind of sitting still. I guess I'm technically one of those as well here. So anyway, that was kind of Dr. Yoon's report. Let's jump in here and kind of see a little bit about what Dr. Lautz had said. Now, Jessica was at our state convention earlier this fall, and as always, she does a fantastic job, and she takes a look more at the generational numbers and kind of the home buyers and home sellers activities and analysis. And actually, the new home buyers and sellers report is out, and if you haven't bought that, I think it's $20 from NAR for realtors. You certainly need to get that, because it's certainly got a lot of great information in there for your marketing. Some of her information actually mirrored Dr. Yoon's, and I've taken out several of her slides, but I just wanted to pick on just a few of these here. The inventory of existing homes back in 2007, we were currently sitting at 4 million homes kind of on the market. Around February of 2020, just prior to COVID, we were at 1.4 million, and we're currently at 1.5 million. So we were actually currently sitting with more inventory than we were pre-COVID, which nationally that's a pretty good sign. We still have quite a hole to dig out of, but if you remember in Des Moines when we had, we're about 1,600 homes on the market, and now we're sitting at 4,500. So that's kind of what you're seeing here, is that large swing right there from the low. The mortgage interest rates, this was done at the beginning of the year, and they were doing some analysis of what would drive the home buyers out there with mortgage interest rates, or what is the effect of interest rates if they continue to go downward. And one of the things that that they've kind of looked at over time is the difference between 6.5% and 3.5%, and that 6.5% rate is $586 a month versus on a $400,000 mortgage, and that's the difference of that's not the mortgage payment. That's the difference between the rate of 3.5% to 6.5%. So it's going to cost you almost $600 more per month for that $400,000 mortgage. Now, if rates were to fall from 7% to 6%, that would equate to about 550,000 new home buyers estimated in the U.S. Now, I don't know if that number is ever, really ever proven out, but what is it that takes? What has to happen to take people and get them out into the buyer's market? That's the question there. A couple of other things that Dr. Lautz talked about was the length of ownership of a home. It used to be back, it was 7 years was kind of the time frame that someone would stay in their home before they sold it, and that went back all the way to about 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, and then it started to jump, and we're currently sitting at probably an all-time high here, where 11 years is kind of the median length of time. So somebody who buys a house today, if you're working with them as home buyers, you used to kind of be able to count on 7 to 10 years they're going to move. Well, now it's at least 11 years on average that they're going to move. So that just means you have to continue to maintain those relationships, continue to be out there and keep in touch with these people, because while they are probably happy in their home, they're not motivated to make that move up. And some of this has been that low interest rate that we've had as well. So it's from 7 to 11 years. That's quite a jump. As far as how does median existing home pricing compare to new home pricing? Well, prior to, again, about 2015, probably around 2015, the price of a new home was markedly higher than existing homes, and then once COVID kind of came into play, both pricing went up. But what you've noticed here in the last year and a half or so is that there's really no gap nationally between really the pricing of a new home versus an existing home. In fact, there are some existing homes that are selling for more than new homes, and some of that's obviously because of the housing shortage that we've got and new builds being down a little bit. But that's likely to be changing next year with some more new construction supposedly coming on. As far as what does it require you to, what kind of income is required if you're going to make a down payment for a median priced home? And again, that median priced home here, let's go back for a second, is around that, I think nationally around that $400,000 or $350,000 price point, which isn't too far from where we are. Actually, that's right where we are at as well. With a 20% down payment, the typical homeowner's total income of their household needs to be right at $101,000 with that 20% down payment to pay for that $350,000 home. That's quite a bit lower than it used to be back in 1995, and if you look back at that time, it was $32,000. Now, if you back inflation back into that at that time, it would be the equivalent of earning about $65,000. So really, there's about a $35,000 or $36,000 increase in the required income. But yeah, that's kind of a scary number. Another thing that we've seen out here that Dr. Lautz brought to our attention that we've probably all seen and just never really realized is the number of cash buyers that are out there in the marketplace. We have for repeat buyers, that number had traditionally been around 15 to 18%, and I think that was right around that 12 to 15% back here at this blue dot right here, and currently it's 30%. So you know, a lot of the home buyers out there, maybe those boomers and the boomer generation, maybe they're cashing in some of that cash from the equity of their homes and just turning that around and putting it all cash into homes. First-time home buyers, we have seen a little bit of a rise. Usually it's around that 4 to 5%, and this past year it's been at 8%. It was at 9% last year, so it's down just a bit from last year, but still a pretty remarkable number. Let's see here. Keep going up here. The typical down payment percentage among most buyers, Dr. Lautz was talking about this as well. We're kind of back where we were back in the late 90s or so, when it was about 23 to 25% down payment. That's the typical down payment of repeat buyers. And again, all the way back to 1989 to today, first-time home buyers are now spending about that same amount of money. Now, prior to 1989, maybe there weren't as many low down payment programs out there. You just basically had VA and FHA and some other government loan types out there. But really across the line here, once they got into the 2000s and late 2000s to 2025, that number slowly rose back up to that 10% number. Some of this could have been also from that mortgage meltdown, and now I think about that, where there were those very, very low or interest-only loans. So maybe they were able to get in lower there. The sources of down payments for the first-time home buyer. Now, traditionally, first-time home buyers, typically their source about anywhere from about 80 to 90% of the time was from their own personal savings. Whether it's borrowed from not borrowed. This is just basically their savings. Usually around 80 to 90% up until COVID hit, at which point looks like everything has come down in that area. Currently, this past year, they were spending. It was about 60% of the first-time home buyers were using savings. So they weren't using nearly as much savings this last 5 or 6 years. They were, a lot of their savings were depleted. Obviously, gifts or the bank of mom and dad here. This is usually it's around that 27 to 30% of sources for down payment, and it's currently down to 22%. And maybe that's a lot of cohabitating. They talked about family members, generational families. The parents living with the children living with the parents, and so this is down to 22%. Financial assets, that's basically where you're going and borrowing against 401k or stocks that you may have. That's up just a little bit. And then, of course, inheritance is always an option there, but not very many people are using inheritance funds, only about 8% this year. So just kind of an interesting numbers of those. Leave you on a couple of high notes here. First-time home buyers, here's a high note. First-time home buyers hit an all-time low. The positive news is coming here. Trust me, I realize I jumped the gun on the positive news. About 50% of the home buyers back in about 2010 or so were first-time home buyers. Currently, we have about 21% of our home buyer population is first-time home buyers. So this is really the segment of the home buyer market that has really stopped buying, and a lot of it is just whether they just don't feel like they have the down payment, or they just decided that renting is easier. We're down to a whole 21%, where back in 1981 44% were first time. I like this graphic. This shows you the U.S. population by age, and this was from 2023. It's a little bit of an older chart, but to the left here you got Gen Alpha, so everyone up to about age 12. There's 50 million Gen Alpha people out there. Obviously these folks are not buying homes at age 12 and under. 12 to 25 is Gen Z, 56 million. Millennials are the largest population at 85.9 million, and the red line in the middle there is the median age of that first-time home buyer. So that's where Dr. Lautz was telling us age 40 is the age where the median first-time home buyer is at, and that's near the end of the millennial group. I mean, because millennials at age 40, they age into Gen Xers at age 45. So the largest buying pool out there is in the millennials. Now we'll skip over Gen X for just a second. The baby boomers, 64 million. That's the second largest population out there, and then that red line there is the median age of the baby boomer who is buying another home, whether it's a downsizing, upsize, or just simply buying, but not a first-time home buyer. So 62 is that number. And I forget the exact numbers, but I know Dr. Lautz said basically, I want to say it's less than about 6 or 7 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, the first-time home buyer age was about 25 to 28, and the move-up buyer, someone who bought their second home or second or third home, that age was around 40. So it's just totally dropped. This whole bracket has just gone completely up the chain there. Leaving Gen Xers out, not by not on purpose here. 60.7 million Gen Xers out there, and many of those homeowners or population are probably in that rental or home buying process there, but they are maybe in their first home but aren't selling. So 60.7 million. So it's just it's interesting. You get over to the silent generation, age 78 and above, 16.9 million. That's obviously the older generation there, and most of those are home sales due to just needing to go into skilled care or the other thing that happens to that generation. The composition of first-time home buyers from 1985 to 2025, in 85, 75% of first-time home buyers were married couples. Today, that's 50%. Single women are continuing to lead the pack. In 1985, they made up 11% of first-time home buyers. Now, nearly 1 in 4 home sales are to a single woman buyer out there. Men, on the other hand, are only making up about 10% of the buyer population. So, guys, we've got our work cut out for us. Unmarried couples is increasing. Back in 1985, only 4% of home purchases by unmarried couples were being made, and currently we're at 11%. So that's even higher than single men. And then, of course, there's the occasional roommates. Back in 1985, it was almost unheard of that just 2 friends bought a house together. And now in 2025, it's still a very, very low number, but it is a number of 4%. So there are some folks buying together to save money. Here comes the good news now. Yeah, this is what I was alluding to. The buyer's use of real estate agents continues to be at a very, very high number. 88% of all buyers this past year used a realtor. They used a real estate agent. So it might have been a realtor or a real estate agent, but there was a licensed real estate agent involved. And 4% additionally were builders or builders agents. In our marketplace, we use realtors predominantly in all of the markets for new construction, but many places around the nation, builders have their own sales department and don't basically have agents. So the even better number is that 91%, it's an all-time high, 91% of sellers use an agent, and for sale by owners are at an all-time low of 5%. So, that's a very, very cool number to look at as well. And this is one of those graphics that you also want to snag and use when you're out on a listing appointment. And they say, why should we use an agent? Well, 91% of sellers out there are using agents right now, and only 5% are for sale by owner. So, all right, well, that's kind of the show. I'm going to leave you with this last slide, and then again, all of this information will be in the YouTube and social media channels. But this was the last slide that Dr. Yoon put out. NAR Research has a really cool set of links and a bunch of information for you out there to use in your marketing. And if you have not been to NAR.realtor and gone to the research tab, or down here you can see there's a QR code, you can snag that. It's NAR Research. They have information for you to use in your marketing on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the social media channels, as well as daily updates and the latest posts of data and analysis. So, all right, 42 minutes. My God, I hope you're 45 minutes. I see there's about 3 people that are on right now with me. Thank you. Give me a thumbs up if you're, hit that like button here on social media. I want to see that happen live. And next week we will do this the old-fashioned way. We're going to go back to a recorded show, 12 to 15 minutes in length, but I do appreciate you joining me this week. And if you have any questions, be sure and reach out to me. So with that, I'm going to sign off and say thanks again for joining me.